Alright, hope you enjoyed the intro and welcome to a new Dust 1947 battle report. Today sees the launch of our new league system, in which the Allies, Axis and SSU will fight in a series of games. The first stage is made up of smaller skirmishes of 50 action points, whilst we'll bump things up in the second stage using armies of 100 action points. The mission will be randomly chosen before each game, and there's two ways of earning points. The obvious one is winning missions, as each win awards you 3 points. The other way is by accumulating kill points in the games. For every full 10 action points of the enemy force you manage to destroy, you get 1 point. There will be 6 games all in all, and the bloc which ends up with the most points will be crowned champion. We rolled a 1, which according to the mission table meant one of the real classics, namely Reload. As the two forces assembled their units, we set up the board, using plenty of terrain as always. Ruins, trees, hills and even a few sandbags were used to make the table interesting and tactical. The ammo crates in the dead center of the board would be the objective, and if any side has uncontested control over it after any turn after turn 3, they would be victorious. The Allies decided to rely upon a rather standard-looking force of Rangers. The leader would be a converted version of the Bazooka Joe model, who is definitely a strong character with his Black Ops and officer skills. The Infantry Corps is made up of 3 units, a combat squad and a recon squad would be the main units, and supporting them is a sniper team. 2 medium combat walkers, the ever-present Pounder and the Steel Rain, should hopefully be diverse enough to counter most enemy threats. The SSU, in contrast, opted for an all-eggs-in-one-basket kind of army consisting of Red Army units. A command squad leads the force, pivotal to keep their vehicles up and running throughout the battle, and the honor of being bait unit went to a close combat squad. A fast-moving Nina would keep enemy armor at bay, whilst the Alexander heavy tank, piloted by Koshka herself, would be the real sledgehammer of the force. Since Bazooka Joe's Black Ops skills enables the Allies to roll 4 dice for initiative, they easily won the roll-off and decided to let the SSU move out first. Thus, the Red Army Close Combat Squad moved up the field, taking up positions close to the objective behind some trees. The Allies activated the sniper team and moved them into some ruins. Since any kind of peaceful negotiations were out of the question, they then decided to open fire. The accurate sniper succeeded in putting a bullet between the eyes of the flamethrower-wielding soldier from the close combat squad. The Nina then charged forwards along the SSU's left flank, getting ready for a possible flanking maneuver next turn. Next up was the squad of combat rangers, who quickly ran up the board to counter further moves from the KV-47 Walker, which had just arrived on the table. Before activating, Koshka's ace pilot skill lets her roll for a possible third action. Unfortunately though, she failed her roll. But that didn't stop the Alexander from thundering onto the board, leveling its terrible twin Tesla gun at the Rangers. 3 shots hit, forcing a casualty and an underfire as well as a stun token on the Allied squad. The Allies realized they needed to deal with the SSU heavy tank and so brought on the Pounder, which fired its main gun at a prioritized target. The anti-tank shell hit home, and as the Alexander failed its cover save, it had to rely on its damage resilience rolls, which meant it eventually took 2 points of damage. Not a lot, but at least a start. The Red Army command squad moved up behind a hill, and the officer succeeded in reactivating Koshka and her war machine. Koshka dealt with the underfire token easily enough and also managed to gain a third action this time around. Thus, the vehicle shuffled a little bit and then returned fire on the Pounder. It used its salvo special rule, doubling the amount of shots, which, combined with sustained fire, resulted in a massive 10 hits. The Pounder, however, passed 5 of the cover save rolls, meaning it was somehow still alive, although just barely. Since the SSU had concentrated their forces on one flank, the Ranger Recon Squad decided to take advantage of the fact that their entire right flank was wide open. They moved up behind some trees for a possible flank attack in future turns. The SSU were out of units to activate, and so the Steel Rain was free to enter the table without any risk of harm. Lastly, Bazooka Joe climbed up on a hill, granting him a clear view over the objective. He then tried to reactivate the Pounder, but unfortunately failed. Turn 1 was finished, and it's quite clear from the overview that the two sides have chosen very different tactics this far. All SSU units are staying close together on their left flank with the Alexander and the command squad combo in the middle, whilst the Allies have units all the way along their board edge. Casualties have been rather light this far, with the obvious exception of the Pounder, which is burning heavily and will need to be very careful from now on. Turn 2 began with the Allies winning the initiative again. Fearing the Alexander might finish what it started last turn, they activated the Pounder, which started proceedings by failing to remove its under fire token. It then had to spend an action clearing the stunned token, and eventually settled for a defensive sideways maneuver. At least now, the trees were preventing it from being targeted. The Red Army Close Combat Squad realized that they had to change position in order to avoid the sniper team, and after getting rid of the under-fire token, they moved back into some ruins, which should, hopefully, be able to provide more effective cover. This move forced the snipers to relocate too, and after some thinking, they decided to keep Bazooka Joe company on the hill. Koshka, her mind now fully committed to battle, gained a third action again from her ace pilot skill and sent the Alexander forwards. It then reloaded the Tesla guns and, spotting the enemy leader, sent a blast of electricity towards the hilltop. Despite only hitting 2 times, it was still enough to cause a wound and, perhaps more importantly, a stunned token on the enemy commander. Not wanting to activate the more precious units yet, the Allies settled for moving the recon squad a few inches further up the flank. The SSU knew that their key to victory was keeping the Alexander going, and so the command squad moved up next to it. The mechanic then set to work on the steel behemoth and managed to restore both of its previously lost hit points. As the enemy tank was getting repairs, the Allies cursed themselves for not bringing a mechanic of their own. Instead, since the SSU definitely had the long-range advantage, the steel ring simply shuffled a little bit whilst it conducted some last-minute weapon checks. The Nina sensed it might be dangerous to go for a flank attack all on its own, and so abandoned that idea and instead headed back to join up with the other elements of the SSU force. The Allies were definitely on the defensive now, and even the Ranger Combat Squad didn't dare to remain where they were and so headed backwards. Bazooka Joe was once again the last unit to activate, and annoyingly he failed to rid himself of the under fire token. Since removing a stunned token uses up an action, the only thing he could do was to withdraw from the hill into the cover of some trees behind the steel rain, a suitable ending to a rather uneventful turn. Yes, turn 2 had indeed been very quiet. Apart from Bazooka Joe taking a minor hit from the Tesla guns, this turn had been all about maneuvering. The SSU are still relying on the Alexander's long-ranged twin Tesla guns, but they will have to move at least some of their units closer to the Allies soon, since they need to approach the objective. The Rangers, on their hand, have found themselves on the losing side of the initial exchange of fire, and so have been forced to more or less dive for cover. They know, however, that both forces eventually have to meet up in the middle, and so have decided to hunker down and play the waiting game for the time being. Turn 3 began with the SSU actually winning the initiative roll, but they decided to let the Allies go first. The Pounder was given an attack order and thus moved up slightly to acquire line of sight to the Nina, which were currently running back to link up with the other SSU forces. The anti-tank can hit, and the Nina failed its cover save roll. Its damage resilience, however, downgraded the damage to only 2 hit points. Koshka and the Alexander then activated. Even though she failed to gain a third action, the heavy tank still decided to go aggressive and so moved up towards the ammo crates. She spotted the sniper team on the hill, and this time both the twin Tesla gun and 2 machine guns were in range. Needless to say, the volley was more than enough to overwhelm the 2 Ranger troopers. This was the moment the steel rain had been waiting for, and it wasted no time in moving around the woods to engage the enemy head-on. Judging this to be a crucial point in the game, it decided to unleash both its mortar and all 4 of its missiles at the Alexander, whilst its machine gun went into the close combat squad right behind. After a burst of bullets, one of the Red Army men was killed. Unfortunately though, the mortar missed completely, and despite hitting with 2 of the missiles, damage resilience and the vehicle's high armor value meant it only suffered 1 point of damage from this potentially game-winning barrage. Not exactly the kind of result the Allies had been looking for. Since it was important to keep the command squad close to Koshka and Alexander, the officer gave the order to advance. He then tried to reactivate the tank, but his orders must have been lost in the sounds of battle. The Ranger combat squad found themselves horribly out of position, and in order to get back into the action, they moved towards the objective. Now it was time for the SSU bait unit to really shine. The close combat squad easily dealt with under fire token and quickly moved right on top of the objective. By doing this, they would force the allies to direct fire at them, which hopefully would be to the benefit of other, more important units. Bazooka Joe was next in line to activate, and after failing to remove his under fire token, he then succeeded in the most important role for the allies this far, the reactivation of the Steel Rain. The medium combat walker once again powered up and quickly gunned down yet another SSU soldier with its machine gun. The mortar managed to hit the Alexander, and the powerful blast was enough to cause some severe damage. Damage resilience from the Alexander, though, mitigated the damage somewhat, but the situation was now well and truly desperate for Koshka and her war machine. A much better showing this time around for the Steel Rain, which gave hope to the allies. The SSU were reeling from the onslaught, and they ordered the Nina to go and deal with this new allied threat. After removing the under fire token, the KV-47 walker's fast movement was just enough to bring its rocket system into range of the Steel Rain. Sadly though, only one of the shots hit, which meant that the Steel Rain, just like the Pounder in turn 1, were left standing with a single hit point remaining. On the Allies' left flank, the Ranger Recon Squad burst through the woods to complete the Allied forces' well-coordinated attack. They leveled their rifles and machine gun at the close combat squad, and the 2 troopers carrying under-barrel grenade launchers fired into the Alexander. The small arms fire effectively brought down the remaining 2 troopers of the Red Army infantry squad, and one of the grenades hit the SSU heavy tank. Since it failed the damage resilience roll, the vehicle was now down to its last 2 hit points. Turn 3 had been the direct opposite of the former turn, with plenty of action and important sequences. Right now, no side is currently on the objective, but both the SSU and the Allies have units closing in. The SSU have lost the close combat squad, but more importantly, both their vehicles have taken fire. Especially the Alexander is heavily damaged, and repairing it will definitely be top priority next turn. The Allies have executed a well-timed and rather successful attack on 2 fronts, and although they too have suffered casualties, they look set to keep the momentum up. The Allies won the initiative roll, and it was no surprise to see them turn to the Steel Rain. The medium combat walker rolled away the under fire token and, thanks to sustained fire, managed to hit with its mortar on the Alexander. However, a miraculously good damage resilience roll from the SSU player denied the Allies any celebration, and the 3 past saves meant this seemingly indestructible steel behemoth was somehow still alive with a single hit point remaining. Despite all of their effort, the Alexander simply wouldn't go down. The SSU realized they now had pushed their luck to the limit and decided to activate the Alexander before anything else could happen to it. Koshka rid herself of the under fire token, but failed yet again to gain a 3rd action. The damage output of the tank is still very high, with only 2 actions however, and it opted to fire the Tesla gun into the Steel Rain and the 2 machine guns into the Recon Squad. 2 hits were enough to finally annihilate the Allied combat walker, which had almost succeeded in destroying the Alexander mere moments ago. The Halo machine gun fire also brought down 3 Rangers. After firing, Koshka put the gear into reverse and backed behind a wood in order to shield the tank from the Pounder. The Pounder, indeed, found itself without line of sight to any target, and so instead decided to move up closer to Bazooka Joe in order to hopefully be reactivated later on. The mechanic attached to the Red Army command squad shook his head and once again did his best to repair the Alexander, this time restoring 2 points of damage. The officer then managed to reactivate the tank, and so Koshka were able to go again. Just like before, a roll of a shield symbol meant no 3rd action this time either. She reversed the Alexander some more and then fired the twin Tesla guns into the survivors of the Recon Squad. In order to make sure there would be nothing but scorched earth left, she decided to go for the volley attack. Perhaps a bit overambitious, since the remaining models were each killed twice over. The combat rangers went for a push towards the objective and so sprung from the cover of their ruins. They then leveled all their guns on the Nina. The bazooka missed the KV Walker though, and in a terrible display of accuracy, so did all 4 of the under-barrel grenade launchers. It seemed all luck had definitely deserted the Allies now. The Nina, having survived the barrage from the Rangers without even a scratch, moved on to the objective to stare down on the Allied troopers. It couldn't return fire though, as it was forced to spend its last action reloading its rocket system. Once again saving Bazooka Joe for last, the Allied hero finally managed to remove his under fire token and then defiantly moved up to stand beside the burning wreck of the Steel Rain. His attempt to reactivate the pounder failed though, which ended turn 4. Turn 4 had been brutal, especially to the Allies. The SSU cannot claim victory yet, however, as the Ranger Combat Squad are contesting the objective despite the Nina currently holding it. From a strategic point of view, the SSU are firmly in the driver's seat now. The Alexander had escaped death by the slightest of margins, and the Nina and Command Squad look poised to swarm the objective. With the Combat Squad failing to destroy, or actually even hurt, the Nina, a move which would have seen them win the game, the Allies now look very weak. They have a couple of units left though, and Bazooka Joe is not going to give up whilst there is a chance of winning. In turn 5, the Allies again won priority. This gave the Combat Squad another chance to accomplish what they had so miserably failed last turn. The squad moved up closer to the ammo crates, positioning themselves to be able to fire their automatic rifles into the SSU Command Squad. Despite only hitting with 2 shots and their target being in cover, they still killed the radio operator and the medic. The bazooka hit too, causing 4 points of damage to the Nina. It passed one of its damage resilience rolls though, which meant it was severely damaged but critically not fully destroyed. The Ace pilot skill finally awarded Koshka a third action. Thus, the Alexander rumbled straight into the middle ground of the board and fired everything it had at the combat squad in an attempt to clear them from the objective. Despite sustained fire though, Koshka rolled poorly and in the end was unable to wipe the squad out. The Allies thought about perhaps withdrawing behind cover with all remaining units to deny the SSU further kill points, but in the end, in true spirit of Bazooka Joe, they decided to keep on fighting. The pounder was given an order to move up on top of the hill, which granted it great fields of fire. The anti-tank gun was leveled at the Alexander and the 2 machine guns were tasked with bringing down the SSU command squad. The firing sequence started badly as the big gun missed its mark. The massed shots of the machine guns, however, proved to be more effective. The barrage impressively managed to destroy the entire unit. Not a perfect result, but at least a proper statement as well as a kill point for themselves. The Nina easily cleared the under fire token, and as it had already reloaded its weapon, could turn towards the newly arrived pounder and fire. 3 missiles were sent screaming towards the allied medium combat walker, and in a stunning display of overkill, absolutely smashed the opposing walker apart, leaving nothing but tiny pieces of metal on the burning ground. Bazooka Joe, too, was caught in the blast and took 1 more point of damage himself, as well as a new under fire token. The allied hero, now truly enraged after having lost almost his entire army, couldn't control his feelings anymore. In a David versus Goliath move, he advanced towards the SSU war machines, grenade launcher at the ready. He reached the sandbags, meaning he was close enough to contest the objective, and then fired at the Nina. The grenade found a weak point in the armor, and not even damage resilience could save the Nina this time around. By now, this is definitely the SSU's game to lose. Even though they only have a single unit remaining, that 1 unit is an Alexander Tesla tank piloted by the hero Koshka. Granted, the heavy tank is damaged, but allies are out of heavy-hitting units, which means they will need to rely on Bazooka Joe's grenade launcher and improvise close combat attacks if they want to bring the steel beast down. Quite far from the right tools for this kind of job, we figure. Still, both sides have units within contesting distance, and so there is no definite victor yet, meaning we need to head into turn 6. The Black Ops special rule has really come in handy for the allies in this game and saw them winning another initiative roll. They turned to Bazooka Joe, who still refused to call the retreat. Instead, he moved up to actually capture the objective and then aimed his weapon at the Alexander. His grenade launcher is actually able to hurt armor value 6 vehicles, and as the shot hit home, he forced Koshka to perform a damage resilience roll. She failed, meaning another point of damage could be added for a total of 5. The Alexander was down to only 2 points remaining now. The Allies' hopes for a miracle was ended then and there though, as Koshka quickly rolled away the under fire token and also gained a third action. She sent the Alexander into capturing distance of the objective and then stared down her prey. The machine guns combined for a high number of shots, which brought down the unit leader of the Ranger combat squad. Grinning menacingly, she then fired the twin Tesla guns, using the salvo for good measure at the brave but perhaps foolish enemy commander. In a thunder of electricity, Bazooka Joe was killed several times over. This meant the SSU had finally won the game. Not only had they won, but they had succeeded in wiping out the entire opposing force. Koshka were able to dismount her burning vehicle and, brushing some dust off of her shoulders, climb on top of the ammo crates and signal the awaiting helicopters. The area was secured. Points-wise, the SSU scored the maximum of 8, 3 points for the mission as well as 5 for kill points. The Allies, on their hand, had destroyed the Nina, the Close Combat and Command Squad for a total of 25 action points, meaning they only scored 2 kill points. Before we take a look at the league table after Game 1, let's briefly go over the Army's performances. As always, we start off with the losing side. The army composition worked okay, and if a few crucial dice rolls had been different, we think they very well could have won the game. The sniper team was wiped out quite early, but the recon rangers executed a rather effective flanking attack. The ranger combat squad was plagued with bad luck though, and struggled a lot to have an impact when they arrived from the ruins. The pounder put the hurt on both SSU vehicles, and also finished off the Red Army command squad. Just imagine what could have been if it hadn't been badly damaged in turn 1. The Steel Rain should, in all honesty, have destroyed the Alexander and won that duel, but sometimes Lady Luck simply isn't on your side. Unit of the game goes to Bazooka Joe himself, as he managed a few well-timed get moving you bunch of monkeys orders, brought down the Nina and helped massively to keep the Allies' momentum up thanks to his Black Ops special rule. The game was quite close actually, but the Allies won't be happy with a measly 2 points from their first outing. The SSU army showed that relying on a strong centerpiece unit combined with a command squad is sometimes enough to see a game through. The close combat squad didn't get a chance to fire their weapons at all, but at least succeeded in their role as a distraction unit. The fast-moving Nina proved to be an excellent supporting unit, adding a strong punch to where it was needed. An honorable mention must go to the mechanic, as without his 2 repair actions, the game would most certainly have been a very different story. The officer too was very effective in conjunction with the Alexander. Of course though, the unit of the game award goes to Koshka and her heavy tank. It either annihilated or severely crippled anything it fired at, and racked up an impressive tally in the end. Also, it survived a ridiculous amount of incoming fire and was the sole surviving model as the game finished. Truly a great start for the SSU, who are already flying high in the table. As always, thanks a lot for watching, and I hope you like the battle report as well as the league format we have decided to try out. Please remember that a like or a comment is always appreciated. More Dust action is on its way, but until then, a massive cheers from Sweden. Bye!